Strap on your earbuds, ladies and gents. You're listening to a full Monty version of Broken Boner Radio.
Don't feel down if you can't get it up. We all need to find the fun in being dysfunctional. It can be brutal if you've got a limp noodle. Getting hard is hard to do, but we're here for you. It's Broken Boner Radio.
Here's your host, Daniel Canfield.
I'm excited about today's guest because we have a lot of things in common. As many of you listeners know, I have a penile implant, and that's going to be something that we're going to dive into deeply because my guest today is Mike. Mike, I want to welcome you to the show.
Well, thank you.
I'm so excited that you're coming forward as I have in the world. As I just mentioned, I have a penile implant, and we share that in common, correct?
That's correct.
We are bionic brothers.
That's correct.
from the waist down.
That's right. That's right. And proud of it.
Absolutely. We're going to dive into the depths of having a penile implant. Basically, we both have gone through a different experience of erectile dysfunction over the course of our lives, and they're both quite different. So I want to dive into that a little bit. Before we do, I really want to honor and thank you for being willing to be so vulnerable and talk about this topic. That's the depth and breadth of part of my mission, is that we as men can talk about this shit.
Yeah.
And so thank you. I just want to...
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. It's my honor. And if I could help enlighten anybody out there that might be thinking of some resolution to their problems, I'd be more than happy to help.
Awesome. So, Mike, how old are you?
I'm actually 69. I can't believe it, but I'm actually 69.
Are you like me? You're 25 with X amount of years of experience that equals 69?
You know, I feel...
Wait, did you say 69?
I did, 69.
You're not just being silly.
No.
But I don't have drums in the background. That's a bad joke. So 69, so your heart beats around on this planet for a long time. Tell me a little bit, you're single.
I'm divorced.
Okay. And how long have you been single?
I've been divorced for 16 years now. 16,
okay. Tell me a little bit about your history, your health history and stuff, because again, that's a big part of what's different in our two stories.
I've always been in good health. I've always eaten organic and exercised every day. I never suspected that I would be sick or I would have any type of cancers at all. But I was monitoring my PSA, which is a blood test, which monitors a certain enzyme in your blood to determine if, in fact, you are a candidate for prostate cancer, or if you might have an enlarged prostate, which is an also indicator of a high PSA. So I kept going every year. Once a year, I'd have a PSA test. It would elevate just slightly every year. And the doctor said the only way to be absolutely confident that everything's okay, it could be an enlarged prostate, which is probably what it is, or it could be cancer. So the only way to find out is to have a biopsy, which I decided to do, which it came back positive. I was in the beginning stages. I think I was 50 years old or 49 years old at the time, which is fairly young.
Wow. And all this started, it's one thing I really want to point out to the men out there. This all was discovered with a simple blood test.
That's exactly right. It's just a simple blood test.
Because one thing I really preach is, it's on my website at danielcanfield.com, but about the manly numbers, that as men, we take better care of our cars than we do of ourselves. And there's a famous author, his name escapes me, but he used that term, and it's really true. I've seen so many men that they will not go to the doctors, they ignore their personal health. And this is just a simple blood test discovered all this.
I was devastated when I realized I had cancer, but it was, I contributed. I'll tell you, I'll go back to the beginning of my story because I think it's quite interesting. At the time, I was going through a divorce in 2000, and I met a really hot girl that I really was trying to keep up with, and I decided on my own to go to the pharmacy, the compounding pharmacy, and buy testosterone in a cream form.
Testosterone, you said?
I thought that would help me. That would help me keep up. And I applied it myself. I had no doctor's prescription on it and no direction of what to do or how much to do. I just decided I was going to use this and increase my male drive and try to keep up.
Would you put it on like suntan lotion, like all over your face? And
I did.
The more the better?
Way overused it. But then to come to find out that this is probably the catalyst. I was probably predestined to it, to have cancer eventually. Maybe later in my life. But being that I used this hormone that elevated the speed of it quite a bit.
Yeah, I do understand. And again, Dr. Goldstein, my medical specialist here on Broken Boner Radio and on my website, he can talk more. I know there's articles about testosterone use can elevate the chance of prostate cancer. It doesn't necessarily lead to that, but that is one of the things you have to be careful about, especially if you're doing it without the doctor's care, correct?
Correct. And it could increase it dramatically. Not only prostate cancer, but heart disease as well.
Now, did you have a history in your family of prostate cancer? Was there any like red flags from that for you?
None at all. None at all. And I know this from talking to quite a few people that the gene that causes prostate cancer in women is the same gene for breast cancer.
Wow.
So if you do have prostate cancer, or if a female has breast cancer, then you need to be more diligent and be a little more. You have to. Yeah. I don't know if you knew that, Daniel.
No, I had no idea. So tell me, okay, so prostate cancer took you out. Talk about your sexual history. Were you a stud when you were in your 20s? What were you like sexually?
Oh, I was on top of my game. I was a player, so I was with a lot of women. Luckily enough, I never caught any venereal disease other than I think craps when I was 20 years old.
And you're my age, even a little older, but back in those days, Navy guys who went to Thailand wore condoms, but nobody else wore condoms, correct?
Yeah, so, I mean, it was there. We knew it was available, but it was just like I rarely used them.
Yeah, that was all pre-AIDS. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you were a stud. So you look at a hot girl and pop a boner in your pants standing at the bar.
Yeah. I got married when I was 31. I married a beautiful, beautiful woman. And we had a great marriage, lasted 21 years. We're still friends. We still talk. It just was one thing that we just lost the passion for each other, and we lost the sexual desire toward the end there. And when I found another woman that I felt that strong about, I kind of went crazy. So I put this hormone all over me and thinking that would just boost me up, and come to find out it just elevated my possibilities of...
The testosterone sun cream, suntan lotion, was after your first marriage?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And obviously prior to you finding out, well, you say that led to, you think that might have helped exacerbate your prostate issues?
Yes, in fact, I know it did.
Wow.
After I had prostate cancer and I had surgery, I actually had it removed. I went to Dr. John DeCarian in UCA Medical Center, which was considered one of the top guys in the country. He was a fellow of Dr. Welch was his name, Hopkins, and he was the guy who developed the surgery to save the nerves.
Wow.
So Dr. DeCarian was the fellow. He would practice as his fellow, and I finally got a hold of him, and through some friend of mine who donated a lot of money to UCA Medical Center, he agreed to do the surgery for me. So I felt I was in great hands, and I had it done, and it was a big decision for me. There was other choices, other things I could have done, but the only way to be absolutely sure that the cancer was gone was to actually have it removed.
Right. So the great news is you survived. This is how many years ago you had the surgery?
16 years ago.
So you've survived 16 years after having prostate cancer. Now, what happened to your boner?
Well, it was, after that, I needed to use Viagra. I could still get an erection, but it wasn't really to my satisfaction at all. So I started using Viagra.
What about your partner's satisfaction?
Well, I didn't have confidence. I was afraid to start a relationship with somebody because I knew I just didn't have the ability that I had before. And then I started, after speaking to a few people, a few doctors, they said, try Viagra, which I did. And it did work very well. It worked very well.
You mentioned your fear. That's one thing I really dive into deeply, especially because I want to help the females out there too. Erectile dysfunction is something that we as men deal with. We never want to talk about it, but women have to deal with it too. And I'm beginning, the more people I get to meet and interview, women know as little or less than we do as men about erectile dysfunction, and it can cause huge frustrations and anxieties in the females. Like, what's wrong with me? Am I not pretty enough? Do I smell?
Yes. Yes.
Am I not
Yes.
good enough sexually to get you erect? And so the one thing that you just mentioned that I want the lady listeners out there to understand is when we can't get erect, we are panicked. Would you say that's fair?
It's very important to the male ego. Very, very
You
important.
know, I experience the same thing. And if women understood just how like panic stricken we are and upset in the moment, cut some empathy. We need some help. And it's not about you, sweetheart. You're beautiful. You're gorgeous. This is a sexy situation. It's like, it's not you.
Well, there's so many reasons that cause erectile problems, and it could be a mental problem, it could be emotional, physical. There's a variety of things. So it's important that you try to understand what is going on in your head as well as your body.
Well, and that's again part of what we're trying to talk about is there are so many variables, and a little blue pill doesn't always fix it. There's other conditions and things that will help and maybe help for a while and then not help much longer. Like I'm doing an article called Beyond the Little Blue Pill. I had a guest who's started taking the pill and all of a sudden it started not working. And that's like, oh, fuck, now what?
That's exactly what happened with me. Eventually, the more you take it, the less effective it is. It eventually becomes non-effective, which happened to me. So then I tried to go to step 2. What do I do now? So I went to the urologist, and the doctor said, well, let's try and see if we can do an injection. And I said, an injection? Stick a needle in my penis? Are you kidding me? It's like, are you kidding me? So he said, well, let me show you how it works. And so he administered it. It pricked a little bit, but I found I got this incredible erection. It was amazing.
And this is after Viagra wasn't working anymore.
Yeah, this Viagra, it was still working, but it wasn't anywhere near as effective as it was in the beginning.
Okay.
So I found a new answer to my problem. I mean, it was amazing. It was an incredible erections. And I got used to using the needle every time I had a sex partner, every time I had a sexual experience. It was the women that I were with couldn't believe it. They thought I was Superman. It was just an amazing experience. So I was very, very excited that I had this resolution to a big problem. And women were very happy. I was very happy. It was just a great solution. Great solution.
You and I are almost like twins going through this journey with erectile dysfunction. My difference was I found out I was born with the condition I have. I can't even fathom. I mean, I've been compensating from the first day I was ever sexually active. In 1974, the first time I tried to have sex with a girl,
Wow.
I was completely limp, completely turned on. All the other bells and whistles were going off inside my body, but my penis was not erect. That was my first sexual experience.
Wow. How did that affect you for your second or your third experience? Mentally?
It was really tough. It was like, and honestly, if it hadn't been for things, and back in those days, pornography was just barely beginning to come out. So, I was dealing with erectile dysfunction. It wasn't even in the dictionary. I mean, it was, but nobody ever talked about it. And so, I didn't know. I was like, and of course, the poor girl was like, oh, the same thing. Am I not pretty? What am I doing wrong? And I'm a virgin. So I'm like, I don't know.
Wow.
I've never seen a vagina before. I don't know what to do with this.
Oh my God. That's gotta have been very devastating for you.
Oh, I spent a lifetime becoming hypersexualized because the condition I have is called corporal erectile tissue fibrosis, which basically, and again, Dr. Goldstein speaks to this, it's on my website, what that is, but it's a degenerative condition that a lot of men, most men as they age, are going to begin to experience.
Yes.
And it's basically the tissue in the corpora of the penis, the shaft of the penis, that spongy material starts to lose its ability, just like to do what it's supposed to do, and that's retain blood, and hence you have an erection. My penis, that tissue, had fibrosis when I was born. They're finding it's now a genetically predisposed, or can be, condition. And my oldest son, I have 3 sons, my oldest son, who's now 30, has the exact same condition I have.
Wow.
And I found out that my father, through a very intimate conversation we had, at his ripe old age of 89, we never talked about this stuff. I never told him. I fathered 3 kids. Who would think I had erectile dysfunction?
Wow. The conversation you had with your father must have been eye-opening.
It was eye-opening and one of the most beautiful, tender conversations I've ever had with my dad. And he just started, as I was telling him the things that I was going through as a kid, that my son Ryan's gone through, he goes, it's funny, because my dad's from the Great Generation. They didn't even have pornography back then as a reference as to, well, okay, there's a hard cock. And that cock's been hard for 20, 30 minutes. He didn't even have that as a reference point. And he was married to my mom for decades. And he told me, he goes, son, everything you're talking about, it happened to me. Like he'd change positions and he'd lose his erection. He just thought that was normal. He didn't know.
Oh, wow.
And he says, your mom would only let me have sex with her on Saturdays.
Oh, no.
He says, so.
Too much information. Too much information.
I know, TMI. God bless you, Dad. But it's in mom's passed. God bless her. I lost her in 2003. But it's just funny talking to him about this stuff. And he's like, I have it too. And then I went back to this information to Dr. Goldstein, who had already tested both myself and my son Ryan and said, yes, you both have this same condition. He goes, and there's research out there going on right now that's starting to show that this can be genetically predisposed and passed on. And he goes, your father, just from the information you've given me, I'm pretty convinced, he's way past the age of being able to test, but that he had in fact the same thing. So what blows me away is I started to compensate. I hypersexualized myself my entire adult young life, trying to find what it was going to take for me to get turned on enough to get a hard on. And it's not that I never got a hard on, but I think like you said, one that you feel comfortable and proud of and it stays there throughout the whole act and you don't have to change positions and worry that you're going to lose it. I spent a whole lifetime doing crazy sexual adventures, and I look back on it now and I'm like, what the hell was I doing? I have erectile dysfunction and I'm throwing myself into all these crazy sexual situations and chasing after girls. And so I can't fathom what it's like for someone like yourself who is completely functional, a stud, proud of your sexual prowess and proud of being able to bring that to a relationship. And then through surgery, lose it.
The only way I can describe it is it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating to me. It was like you lost your best friend,
Mr. Happy, as we refer to him sometimes on the show, Mr. Happy. Mr. Happy started letting you down.
But it was good. It was good to find out that there was resolutions. There was answers to the problem.
Well, that's part of what too. There's hope out there, men.
There's hope
and women. So you did injections again. You and I shared that in common. Viagra stopped working for me. Started doing injections. They worked for me for about a year. How long did they work for you?
Well, that's a good question. The substance I was injecting was called Trimix, and I'm not sure its exact chemicals, but they worked for me altogether about 7 years.
Wow.
But what happened was I started with a low dosage, and then eventually I was given a prescription for the strongest prescription, the strongest strength. And then that eventually was not effective. It wasn't as well.
They couldn't give it to you in a suntan lotion thing like your testosterone earlier in life where you just slather it all over yourself?
Well, I sure wish. I look for everything. I was so fortunate enough to realize that there was the injectables. I had no idea, because up to that point I was so frustrated that the Viagra wasn't working that well. And I didn't know what to do. And I went to this urologist in San Diego here, and fortunately enough, he informed me about the injections, and I was just so pleased and so happy that there was an answer to my problem.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really a big day for me.
And then I'm guessing that started to not work as well?
And then after about 7 years, I was developing scar tissue from the needle. So when you inject yourself, you're supposed to squeeze if there's any bleeding inside. Whenever you inject a needle into you, sometimes there's bleeding inside. And you have to squeeze your...
Especially in your dick.
Yeah. Yes. So you have to squeeze it and hold it for at least 2 minutes.
Right. I remember that drill.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't do that. I was so anxious to get into her pussy. I just held it for a short time and eventually I developed a lot of scar tissue, which is like a hardening on both sides. of the injection site. And so eventually the needle, because of the combination of the scar tissue and over a period of time, it just is not as effective. I was losing my ability to get an erection that way, and I didn't know. I said, oh my God, what am I going to do now? So that was a big dilemma for me. That was a big, big dilemma.
So then you arrived at the big decision.
I went to Dr. Goldstein. Dr. Goldstein is really considered one of the top guys in the country. Wonderful man, great personality. I love that guy. And that's his job, is to figure out, female and male, how to resolve sexual dysfunction. He recommended that I have a penile implant, and I thought, oh my God, a surgery, something like that, that's huge. And it took me about
Huge.
yeah.
No pun intended.
But it took me a year to decide to finally go ahead with that, which I'm really, really glad I did.
You and I do share Dr. Goldstein in common as well, because he was also my sexual therapist and ultimately the person who did my implant surgery, and has become a part of this platform in Broken Boner Radio. So I love Dr. Goldstein, his wife Sue, and their whole team at the San Diego Sexual Medicine.
Yes.
It's an amazing
yes. And they help so many people.
Mission that they're all
and
on.
And you can tell from just the way he is, the joy that he expresses, how satisfied it is to him to help people.
Yeah, I think people hear that in his voice. Interviewing him, and he's doing his little segments on this podcast called Just the Tip, and I think people can hear that in his voice. He's a wonderful human being, and he's a little crazy and irreverent like we are.
And his nurses too.
And frankly, I love that about him. If somebody's going to play with my junk, I want him to have a sense of humor about it, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's the whole atmosphere in there is just phenomenal, just phenomenal. So Mike, tell me, so you had the implant. Now, I know my own experiences, and again, now here's where we differ. I've been married for 20 years. So most of the Viagra, the shots, the penile injections, the implant, all of that has happened within the 20 years of my being married with my wife. I even go back to the vacuum pump days. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never tried that one.
Oh, you know what? It worked. Not very sexy.
Wow.
Pulling out something that looks like your Vita Blender thing and stick it on your dick and pump up. It's kind of, and what's really cool is my wife Stacy at some point is going to be one of my interviews too, and she's going to talk all about spending a life with a man who's had erectile dysfunction and give her perspective on things. But yeah, so I've been through the whole process, but I've been married this whole time. You're single, dude.
Yeah.
Tell me, what was life like after your implant? How long was the recovery time? What was the surgery like in the recovery time? Tell us that.
Well, the surgery is surgery. You go through pain and it's not comfortable. The doctor, I'm trying to remember, said that 6 weeks after surgery you're able to...
Yeah, that's what mine was. I think it's typically 6 weeks.
6 weeks, but it took me at least 8, 9, maybe even 10 weeks before I felt comfortable enough to go ahead.
Yeah.
I had a hematoma on the left side of my penis, which is a liquid fluid would swell and make like it looked like a boil, but it wasn't a boil. It was just an empty water-filled...
Like blister kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of like a blister, yeah. So it would go away. It would come and go away, and the doctor was concerned about that. He thought, oh my God, I've never had anybody have that before. And over a period of about 2 months after, it just went away. So I haven't had a hematoma at all.
Let me interject real quick, so the listeners may not understand what a penile implant is. As I understand, because you and I have talked, we both have the type of implant that you inflate.
Correct.
Okay. So for the listeners out there, the type of, and I'm guessing you have the same type. It's made by Coloplast. It's their Titan model. Coloplast is a company that makes all sorts of medical things for the human body. Penile implants are one of them. But it's a self-contained fluid-filled system. Theirs is made from they call it Bioflex, which I think is basically like a silicone material or very similar to what women's implants are made from. So it's supple, and it's a durable bipolymer material, and also the silicone are involved. In it, the whole prosthesis that goes inside our bodies, that's what people are always like, wow, is all this hanging out of you? It's like, what, do you look like a freak from another planet? It's like, Marty, and I think you can attest to this. If somebody saw us both naked, well, this sounds weird. If they saw us both naked,
Be careful with your words.
yeah, okay. But we look completely anatomically normal, correct?
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of this. Everything I'm talking about is internal, but it includes a reservoir that's placed up in our abdomen
Yes.
that contains, I think it's saline solution.
Yes.
And then there's two cylinders that are placed, they're long, elongated cylinders that are placed in the meat of our dicks.
Right. And that's
One on
where
either
the
side.
blood would have flowed before, which gives you the erection. So it's replaced with these cylinders.
Right. And then the pump that actually transfers, when you pump it, that transfers the saline solution or the fluid from the reservoir mine's up by my bladder, I think, is where Dr. Goldstein said it was implanted. It transfers the liquid from that into the cylinders on the side of the penis. And for me, my wife and I counted once, it's 20 pumps.
Okay. Yeah, that's about right. That's about right.
Yeah. So, and that pump hangs between our testicles. Is the same for you, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So basically, we have three balls.
Correct.
Okay. And mine's 100%. Anytime I want to get erect, right?
Anytime you want an erection, you just gotta put your hand down your pants and pump it. It's so amazing.
And then the release valve is down there too. There's a little place where you press. It doesn't hurt. Everyone's like, "Oh man, that must hurt." No, it doesn't hurt at all. Not an
Not at all.
ounce. Does it hurt?
Not
you?
at all. It's an absolute wonderful device that they've invented. It's amazing.
And so, do you have to abide by the Viagra rules? If you're erect more than 4 hours, you need to call the doctor.
No, you can go all night if you want. It's phenomenal. It's amazing. But one thing I wanted to tell you, Daniel, that I omitted. I was one of the only men. I was told by Dr. Goldstein. I was one of the only men in the world that had stem cell
Oh,
implants.
that's right. I forgot.
I don't know if I don't know if you knew that. So before I had the surgery, Dr. Goldstein suggested that I go into this test trial where he was doing stem cells. They were doing stem cell.
This is
research.
after your prostate surgery you're talking about.
This is after the prostate surgery and after the Viagra wasn't working at all.
Okay.
So I definitely volunteered for it. So they took some fat out of my stomach. They put it into a certain machine, took out the stem cells, and injected it into my penis, which worked really well. For the first probably year and a half, it was amazing. It increased my morning erection, increased my sensitivity. It was amazing. So, but eventually that kind of dissipated as well.
Yeah.
So then I made the final decision to get the implant.
Wow. Okay.
So that was something I wanted to share with you as well.
I appreciate you remembering that. That's real important stuff. Yeah, Dr. Goldstein talked to me about stem cell research too, but my case was so severe. It was like, let's just jump to the implant. And see. Yeah, but to his credit and his staff's credit, I went there seeking the implant because I looked him up online about penile implants, and he said, "Slow down, cowboy." He goes, "We're going to take the cautious approach here. You're using Viagra, and that's starting to not work as well. Let's try the injections." So those injections worked for me for about a year, but he didn't just immediately jump to the surgery with me because he said there's no turning back from that, as great as it is. And so I really want to applaud he and his whole staff on their positioning on that. So
Daniel, let me ask you this. Your injections only were effective for 1 year?
yeah.
Wow, that's short.
Well, again, my condition, the fibrosis part, it is degenerative, and so it gets worse over time. It's basically, if you think of the tissue in the penis like a sponge that fills with liquid, fills with blood, and it gets full and hard. My tissue with the fibrosis, it's like a sponge that gets old, and it doesn't hold the blood anymore. Well, that just gets worse and worse and worse. And a lot of these Viagra and all deal with blood flow. Well, if the apparatus that's supposed to hold the flow doesn't hold it,
I see.
See, so mine only got worse and worse and worse and worse.
I see. Wow.
So, and like I said, this is a condition that Dr. Goldstein has shared with me that a lot of men are going to get. It's a condition of just getting older.
Well, there are men in their 20s that have sexual dysfunction.
Yeah, well, my son Ryan, like me, he's had it his whole life too. When he first became sexually active, now that we've shared stories, he knew something was wrong the minute he was first sexual with somebody. It wasn't, not that he couldn't get an erection, but it wasn't very firm, or it would dissipate within seconds if he changed positions. So yeah, that's part of the deeper narrative for my mission and people like yourselves that are so willing to be vulnerable and come forward and talk about this is to let people know that this can affect anybody at any time.
Well, I think what you're doing and trying to get this out on the table is so important. It's so important. There's a lot of questions that I think everybody has that they would like to know more information about.
Well, that's what we have the website for at danielcanfield.com, and of course my podcast here. So, life after the implant. Okay, I know all the men are out there like, all right, so do you tell women that you have an implant?
Well, actually, I don't initially. When we first get into a sexual relationship, I don't. Then I eventually do. Once, after 2 or 3 different times, I do. But at first, I don't. It's funny, Daniel. I've talked to women about Viagra and about different issues, and some women, and this would be a good thing for you to do, is follow up. Talk to a lot of women about how they feel about their man taking Viagra and a man having an implant. I've heard pro and con from women on how they feel about that. Some women feel like they want to have somebody who gets a hard-on naturally. And some women, they feel that, any way in which that will help a relationship become more intimate, no matter what they use, is the most important part of it.
It's good that you mentioned that because I, in fact, am going to have some medical specialists. One of the psychologists, I think she is, from Dr. Goldstein's office, is going to be a guest. And we're going to talk about the female issues around erectile. See, that's part of my message. Erectile dysfunction isn't just about the men. It's about what the women don't understand either. And the brain fuck that goes on in their heads. Like so many women in the society, and that's, again, a part of the deeper narrative that I want to continue to talk about, is we've all been taught, and women especially, that the measure of how attracted we are to them sometimes is whether we get a big heart on or not. And it's like, if women only knew what we go through, and especially if we have a condition or, you had prostate cancer. I was born with this degenerative thing that made it very difficult for me. Has nothing to do with how I feel about her.
Yes.
Or how turned on I am.
But you're bringing up a whole issue here. When you talk to women, I think a lot of men, and this is just from what I hear from women, a lot of men don't know how to turn a woman on. If they do turn a woman on, they don't know how to romance a woman. They don't know technique. They don't know
They don't have any other skills.
skills. Yeah, and I think there needs to be a program, honestly.
It's like men have one tool in their toolbox. It's a dick. And if that doesn't work, I'm fucked. How am I going to build this sexy house when the one tool that God gave me isn't working?
But you talk to a woman about what's important to her, and as far as making love, and the actual sex act is one of the things that are probably in the middle and down part of the list. There's so much that goes into a woman's romance and how she feels, unless she just wants to get fucked, and that's the idea of the bottom line.
And there's plenty of those women out there too.
Yeah.
But I think seriously, if we can help open the dialogue for women to understand that there's more to it than that, and especially if men can get to a place where they can talk about this comfortably, because there is that transference of something's not going right downstairs, and all that information is put up into your brain, and you go into this clusterfuck, mind-boggling panic, and it's like a systemic thing. It just keeps going back and forth and up and down, and nothing works at that point.
Yeah. The mental goes, everything goes.
Exactly.
But there's so many things involved with relationships and a good, healthy sexual relationship. It's so complex, and it's so great that you're tackling this. There's an old joke, Daniel. Do you know why women fake orgasm?
Why?
Because men fake foreplay.
Not all men. I've really enjoyed having you on. Just in conclusion, Mike, you were a stud when you were younger. You went through a physical condition, had prostate cancer, lost your ability to have an erection, and now you're out on the other side, a bionic cock, just like me. And we can get it hard anytime we want and leave it hard as long as we want, right? Better than when you're in your younger years, right?
Daniel, all I can tell you is, I'm back!
Bigger and better than ever.
Bigger and better than ever. It's phenomenal. It's just one of the greatest inventions and the wheel. I think that was one of the greatest inventions.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
And that's changed your life. That's what you've indicated to me.
The implant is what's caused me to have an own, almost a sexual revolution within myself about this whole life that I've led. I'm so excited to bring it forward, and it's just my new passion in life, my new purpose. And it all really kind of came about because I did have the balls, no pun intended, to go forward and have an implant done. And it's getting rid of that, right? You don't have the mind fuck anymore, right? Can I get hard? Am I going to be able to perform tonight, right?
I don't think twice about it.
Yeah. Alcohol doesn't affect it.
Nothing affects it. Nothing affects it. And I can say as hard as I want for as long as I want. It's just...
you don't even have to be in the mood, right?
Yeah. You want to be in the mood. I mean...
Well, yeah. But I mean, literally, you can pump it up and get yourself in the mood.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I'm not feeling it, but I'll pump it up. And then you get in the middle of a sex act, and it's like, oh, this is kind of hot.
Yeah, it's like when you're a kid and you get your first toy,
Exactly. Well, Mike, again, I want to thank you for coming on. Again, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and so transparent. You're going to help tons and tons of men and women out there. Hopefully, maybe in the future, I can have you on again. We can dig a little deeper on some of this stuff. And
oh, yeah. I would love to. Daniel, anytime, feel free. I'll be more than happy.
Okay, that's it for today. I'm totally spent, and people, I need to go take a nap. If you'd like to call and leave a question or comment for the show, 405-592-6637. That's 405-59-BONER. You can find me on Facebook at Broken Boner Radio or danielcanfield.com, or you can even follow me on Twitter at RealBrokenBoner. I want to give a shout out to my production team at podcastfasttrack.com. Carrie, I couldn't do this without you. And I can't wait to talk more about my erectile dysfunction with all of you in future episodes. In the meantime, keep it real.